that was one of the first things like I thought of when I look back to consuming cannabis my first time. I remember hitting the joint and thinking like, oh, all these people were wrong to me. I felt lied to. I don't see anything wrong with this. There's all these downsides that people are talking about. It's like the DARE program and all the anti-cannabis propaganda that we've received the past 100 years just kind of collapsed instantly in that moment. And I was like, just people need to give this a shot and try it. And if it's not for them, it's not for them. That's fine. Oh, it's definitely a skill. Podcasting, and I don't know, I'm a natural introvert myself. So I think doing these podcasts really helps because it forces you to really participate in the conversation. And doing the podcast specifically being longer form, I try to hit like an hour to an hour and a half. Obviously, like no set time frame. If it goes longer, great. If not, whatever. But trying to maintain that conversation for that set time as opposed to like a normal interaction in my day to day would be like a couple minutes with a person and then try to bounce it or whatever. So through doing these like podcast repetitions, it helps not only get your like personal brand name out there, help educate. It also kind of internally helps me get rid of that introvert. But with that said, welcome everyone to Higher Thoughts. We were just having some high thoughts about podcasting and whatnot. I'm your host, Alex. This intro is probably going horrible, but today we have Ben Thiel. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Ben, and my last name is Thiel. Actually, the H is silent.
Oh, my bad.
Thiel, it's okay.
I was thinking like it's spelled like Peter Thiel, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think his
Or
last
am I
name is
mispronouncing it? Okay, so I'm probably just butchering it.
yeah.
Anyways, my bad.
No, I appreciate you taking the time, especially for meeting with me as well. And it's cool how we were talking about a little bit earlier, like introvert, extrovert, and I feel like I can definitely kind of relate to that as well, like being a little bit more on the introverted side. I've had to like push myself because of my background in group fitness and like leading a team and coaching a full class to become a little bit more extroverted and to like, I guess, get the reps in is exactly what we're doing. But my background started in Texas, and I was basically just a normal Texas boy, like football, track and field. Sports were my religion, and family was next, and then school was kind of third. And then I went to the University of Oregon for basically for sports, and then I ended up staying there for about 4 years. And then I left Oregon, but I still stayed with sports. I went back to a school down in Texas, and that's where I graduated with my degree. And then after my bachelor's degree, I kind of thought like, I think I need a little bit more education. I need more knowledge, and I wanted to study. So then
What was your
I kind of,
degree? Sorry to cut you off there real quick.
my degree is technically in interdisciplinary studies.
Okay.
It is basically 3 minors make up a major. So it's very broad. It's very kind of like, there's a lot. I took a lot of psychology classes, sociology classes, business economics.
Okay.
I ping pong class. So it's very diverse. And
Nice.
going from Texas to Oregon, it was like, I'm going to try a little bit of everything because I think I'm a little bit more like neurodivergent or something because I have so many interests and I have like so many paths that I want to pursue, but I don't always know how to focus on just one thing. Um, so yeah, that was interesting. And then I went back to school and I did completely online through a school in Missouri, and I ended up graduating with my master's in nutrition and human performance. And then now I work basically as a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. I really like helping like people basically improve their health metrics. Um, and for me, the metrics are really important, but at the end of the day, it's all about, I think, the behavior change and the habit change, which is like the biggest sign of success, I guess, in my experience with working with clients.
Yeah, they definitely go
Which
hand in hand. There's like a psychology behind that.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
So like what kind of metrics do you really try to focus on improving? Or if like a client was to come to you, what's that kind of look like?
This is a really good question because now I have a client who is local to Majorca. He's in his 70s, and the only metric that we really need to work on is waist circumference. So I'm
Okay.
going to pick a super easy one and maybe even blood pressure, but I'm going to do an easy one that he's used to because for me, it's all about coaching the person. It's not about like applying my program. I'll apply like my principles in my foundation, but really about the person. He's a bit more adverse. If I can keep it as full as possible and literally measure his waist circumference, go through a training plan, and then that benefit, then that's pretty much the metric. Oh, I have high, their metric is a speed in the hurdles or something a little bit more performance based.
Okay. And you said you're based out of Majorca. Where's that out of again?
So okay, so basically Spain is a peninsula which like kind of bulges out, and then Majorca is southeast to the peninsula of Spain. Almost,
Okay.
I'm like in Hawaii of the U.S., not as far.
Nice. So
Yeah,
our first international guest on then. What brought you to Spain?
that's cool. I was in London. In London, like I think one word, one is just chaotic, and my wife, like we need a little bit more tranquility. So she had family. Okay, okay, let's go live on. See if we can grow our professional career. And but yeah, London was too, um kind of too chaotic.
That's what I've heard. London would be cool though. I've always wanted to see Europe. I've done a lot of travel in the Caribbean and of course the US, but never made my way out to that side of the world. Was there anything like that drew you to London? Like how'd you end up I'm trying to piece this together. We went from Texas, Oregon, and then was it Oregon back to Texas if I remember, or
Right.
was that
Yeah.
okay?
Story broken, but it was Texas, Oregon, back to Texas. And then I went back to Oregon because I was like, I'm kind of an Oregon boy now. Like, I don't want to go back to Texas. Barbecue and beer is not for me. Like, I'd rather
Okay.
go live trees in Oregon. So I was in Oregon for another year, and then I moved down to Arizona, and I was with a training group in Arizona. And that's actually where I completed my master's degree online.
Gotcha.
After Arizona, I then moved to Long Beach, California, and I was in California for 3 years. Um, I think my journey of cannabis started in Oregon, and
Okay.
then it traveled to Arizona and to California, and then over to London, and now Spain. But I basically moved from California to London to be with my wife because we had met and
Gotcha.
we were on for like 2 years. And she was the connection to London because other than that, I had absolutely no idea what to expect. I didn't know anything
Okay.
about London.
That's awesome, dude. I like that.
It was
So
cool. I think you'll definitely.
you said that Oregon was where you kind of got your intro to cannabis. What did that look like?
It was kind of brilliant because I was there. I started school in 2013, and I could be wrong on the dates, but I believe about 2015 was whenever they legalized it recreationally. And I wasn't a big user from 2013, 2015, maybe like once in the summertime when we had some mates come home from, I don't know, some locals from Oregon. They would bring some like homegrown weed, and we would try and get absolutely zooted. Um, but basically, I was in the scene whenever they started bringing in recreational marijuana, which is very safe for me because I was able to go to a commercialized store and to actually buy it. I feel like a safe environment, and it was a really good, I think, introduction for me with cannabis in general. But Oregon, I think, from my experience of using cannabis in the U.S., I think it's probably the most kind of wholesome flower that I've tried so far. And I wouldn't say I'm like a consumer,
Like
like
a connoisseur.
exactly.
Yep.
But
Okay.
like the Oregon flower.
Everyone though always says like Spain and the coffee shops, like Netherlands, like I always heard that that has fire weed out there. Do you think that the US and Oregon has better weed than Europe?
That's a good question. I would say I haven't. I've gone to the Spain Social Club here in Majorca, maybe a total of 10 times. But I haven't tried some of the nicer clubs on the peninsula. Like there might be nicer clubs in Palma, but I'm still a little bit more rural. So the
Okay.
clubs are, um, I think, yeah, I haven't, I guess, explored all the strains here, but what the weed here is good. I still think the Oregon weed that I had was really nice, but I haven't tried some of like premium spots in Spain. I don't, yeah.
Okay. So I'm not real familiar. What's the cannabis like laws look like out there? Is it fully legal, I assume, if you guys have clubs, or is it just decriminalized?
I think it's more decriminalized and it's
Okay.
considered zone. because you can consume at a club and you can consume privately, but publicly is illegal.
Okay.
And then if you're actually able to consume privately or in a club, there's still like a gray area where we don't know exactly what's legal, what's not legal, what percent of THC is legal and what is not. But I think we're able to grow a certain amount of plants. I haven't gotten into growing yet, but I think like, let's say like 3 or 4 plants or less. And then, yeah, so it's kind of like it's operating in a gray zone. So I feel pretty safe. And I feel like um, the police or the police aren't super strict about it because I think the hash scene here is quite strong as well. So me being kind of like a California boy, always wanting flower, they're like, look at this pretty white boy from America, whereas the locals are smoking like hash and stuff with tobacco.
Yeah, they do those spliffs over there, right?
Yeah,
I actually
definitely.
I actually like that though. As someone that's like hopelessly addicted to nicotine, as I've been puffing this e-cig here, um, it's kind of like a blunt for me. I enjoy that little extra
Yeah.
throat hit, the nicotine. I think there's some synergy there with the buzz. Uh, Nicotine, at least for me, enhances the buzz a little bit more. I know it's not for everyone, but that's interesting. I,
I'm big on like caffeine and cannabis. So it's
yes,
like I love that. I don't know how it is biochemically. I don't know what's going on there. I would definitely like to learn a lot about it more, but I like caffeine and cannabis together. That's kind of my thing. And then every now and then I'll do like nicotine because it will switch me on, but it's like it's almost so intense that I can't really handle it like regularly.
fair. I think I'm habitualized, or I started chewing tobacco when I was like 16. So it's been like half my life pretty much exposed to nicotine. Was able to quit once for like 3 months, and I don't know why I decided one day randomly to pick it back up, but here we are. So,
Hmm.
why do you think that Europe kind of has that almost, I wouldn't say stigma of like American with flour, but it almost seemed like this hash culture is really big over there? How do you think, or like, I guess I'm trying to see how to word this best. Like, why do you think that exists? Is it just simply because hash was easy to transport and less likely to get you caught? So it just through that
Hmm.
kind of evolved? Or is there something truly different about their hash where it's just that much better? And so they just focus in on it. I don't know. I'm curious, like how that
Yeah.
kind of came to be.
No, that's a pretty solid question. I think the reason it's more I think it comes down to cultivation and the traditional way to consume cannabis is, I want to say, more hash based. You can't quote me on that. I don't know for sure, but I think, coming from, I guess like the origins of cannabis in general, I think are from kind of like Afghanistan, and the more the traditional ways to consume it was through hash. And that was their method, was to extract it however they do use like whenever they make hash. And I think now like flour, to grow flour is a little bit more time consuming and rigorous. um
Well, you
and
still
so
have
I
to
think
grow
like,
the flower to make the hash, though.
I guess that's true. I guess I would need, I think it comes down to cultivation though, and like it just being a little bit more traditional to Europe.
Okay. Now, are they still doing like the finger hash over there, or is it evolved into bubble hash? Are we getting like a evolution into rosin? What's that kind of look like?
I think that I don't even know, I wouldn't know what the answer to this is because I usually just do flour, so I
Okay.
don't know the rosin, the hash scene as well as I do the flower scene. Um, but I think they're definitely evolving because Germany and the UK just legalized it
Okay.
recreationally, and I think that's a big move because whenever I moved to London, I was surprised at how much I actually smelt weed on the streets. I was like, wow, this is, I didn't really expect it. I didn't know what to expect. But I think recently Germany and the UK have just now legalized recreational marijuana, which I think is a big step for them,
Certainly.
and that will come with more competition for, the higher quality resin and the extracts and the waxes, I think. But I guess I wouldn't have a 100% answer to that question.
Now, I think as like Americans, a lot of us don't really, I mean, like, I haven't really
Medica.
I haven't been to Europe, so it's hard for me to really make this connection. it's like as Americans, when we think of other countries, we're thinking of like, oh, we have to travel really far to Mexico or Canada. But
Mhm.
really, in Europe, the countries are kind of like states, and in America, we're really pushing for interstate commerce here and the ability for states to sell to other states. Do you think with Germany and UK coming online, Spain being decriminalized, or how it is, that you'll see almost interstate commerce or country trade occurring? Or are we still a long ways out on that?
In Europe or the US?
Europe.
Yeah, I would like to be positive about it and say that in the next 5 or 10 years, I think it will be pretty common, but I can't say I know for sure. For su
Okay.
Mhm. What about in the States? Like, what are your thoughts with Arizona and
So
where the
it's weird because, like, if we look at alcohol, there's laws in effect, and I forget the name of it. I want to, off the tip of my tongue, say blue sky laws, but I know that's not correct. There's a set of laws that basically say that you can't restrict commerce between states. For example, a Michigan winery couldn't like say, no, we're only selling to Michigan residents. And so on that aspect, you would think that interstate commerce should be allowed. But again, we are still talking about a Schedule One substance here that's technically illegal at the federal level, uh, despite many states having come as far to like either legalize or go recreational. Um, it's still kind of not allowed. Now, we've recently had this announcement for the AG to speed up the process of rescheduling cannabis to Schedule 3, but I still don't think that's going to really help much because if we look at Schedule 3 drugs on the market right now, those are all just pharmaceuticals. Ketamine is like the first one that comes to mind. And there's a handful of ketamine clinics in Michigan, but it's not like a dispensary where there's a dispensary on every single corner. So it's really
Mhm,
hard to tell. I think eventually we'll get there. There's enough money and political backing, I think, at least starting to build where the lobbyists will push for that. And as these economies become more established. And what I mean by economies is like every state market is like its own little mini economy. As those start getting bigger and more pronounced, I think you're going to have spillover where it's inevitable and interstate commerce will come. Put a date on it is really hard. It could be the next couple months or a couple years out. I don't really know, but uh, it's something that I think is inevitable.
mhm. I do too. Is there any restriction between CBD and THC on inter
So that's where it gets weird because in 2018, we passed the Farm Bill, and that basically said that hemp and CBD is illegal. Anything containing less than 0.3% THC is considered hemp. The problem with that legal definition is the plant doesn't produce THC, it produces THCA. And it's not until you light it or take a dab of it that it loses that carboxylic acid and becomes the psychoactive THC. So, by legal definition, most of your cannabis is already considered legal hemp. And that's where people have been exploiting it since 2018. And it wasn't until recently that the government kind of, I don't know if caught on to it is the best way to say it, but closed that loophole. So, effectively, hemp brands have until the end of the year, unless any lawsuit reverses this, to kind of sell their remaining product out. But up until now, I mean, you pretty much could do interstate commerce, and like I could go online and buy a THCA drink or a hemp CBD drink. And there's also a lot of like these conversion products where they take CBD and synthetically convert it to something like Delta 8 THC, which falls under that legal classification of hemp is minor psychoactive. And yeah, like some states have banned that. I know Michigan took a stance against that, but states like Texas, that's really big down there. I know that there's quite a few times that they tried to kind of close that loophole, and I don't think it's been effectively shut down as of yet. But as far as I know, they have about a year left to really kind of exploit that hemp loophole. And then
Hmm.
they'll be either forced to grow true like hemp CBD or pivot to the regulated market.
Wow. Okay. Do you think like I guess that will come with like more rigorous labeling and I guess kind of knowledge around the matter, hopefully.
It it really depends on the state. Um, I think the biggest change is just it kind of forces you to use either one of two systems that we have in place for plant tracking. The big one being it's called Metric, and the other one being BioTrack. Essentially, that's like tracking every single plant from seed to sale, and that's what the state really wants to ensure. Like nothing's being diverted from the legal market to the black market. But even I mean, there's a lot of burden that comes to it. Operators don't want to be tracked, and there's costs that come with that. But I think there's flaws with that too. Like even the seed to sale tracking system in Michigan, people divert black market product into the regulated market all the time. Where the big concern was regulated products spilling over to the black market or into the streets. That doesn't even seem to be the case.
I think that would
So
be a good reality.
you would think. And what it really shows is that there's I would say, a roadblock, a hurdle, or an undue burden that some people want to get into the cannabis industry, but it's easier just to divert laws to do so than to raise the capital so that you can do it correctly and pay the 24 grand or whatever it is a year for licensing fees and all the
Mm.
taxes that go with it. So you have people showing interest in wanting to get into the market. And I think the big worry coming into legalizing, whether it's recreation or medical, all these states are like, well, we don't want people buying weed and then selling it on the streets or selling it to kids. And that really hasn't been the case, is what we're seeing. It's actually the other way around. The streets are selling to the regulated market, or trying to at least.
Hmm. It's kind of interesting you say that because I thought about it today, and I wondered like I guess where were you whenever it became recreational in your state? Where were you?
So Michigan's interesting. In 2008, we went medical, and I remember I was in eighth grade. That was a big like talking point because of that's like the age where you kind of start getting exposed to cannabis potentially. I was kind of raised in an anti-cannabis household, so I stayed away until about my sophomore year of high school. So I lasted about 2 years, and cannabis didn't really appeal to me till after was maybe 19. I was out of high school for a little bit. Had just got off the fire department for medical issues and found a lot of relief in cannabis. Started working in the industry under that kind of medical platform in 2016. And then we passed the laws in 2018 to go recreational. So I was working in the industry at the time when we went rec. I think 2019 is when we finally got our first licenses issued. So effectively, we went recreational 2019. And at that time, I was in the earlier part of the year running a processing lab in Detroit. And then afterwards, that lab got shut down due to like zoning issues and just some weird stuff that Detroit was pulling. Um, and I kind of had a choice to either find a job in industry. I'd have to move because there wasn't many people hiring around me at the time. Or I had noticed that there was a degree program that had opened up for cannabis chemistry. And that was in Sault Ste. Marie, where I'm at now. Not having any formal education before that, I figured that was a perfect chance to double down on cannabis as kind of my thing. And through like formal education, it might help me either find a job in the future, or I had really wanted to start my own cannabis company. So I figured it might either add to the credentials that an investor would want to look for in a company that they're funding, or I would meet the friend group or people that would kind of allow that to happen. And both kind of actually both came true, but didn't. Like, I met a couple people up here. We tried to start a company, actually partnered with the university. We were going to try to do a lot of research and studies, but ultimately just wasn't able to raise the capital to make it happen. We were trying to raise $14 million to what we thought would do it right. And I think timing played a big role in that, because the past couple of years, there's been a lot of uncertainty in both just the general markets and the cannabis market. So it's been really hands off when it comes to private equity and venture capital firms. So it just really wasn't good timing for us to launch a company. And uh, that's where I've kind of found myself now, is the past year just doing a job search, trying to get back into processing or cultivation. Uh, I used to love working in grows, did that for a little bit. Worked in cannabis retail, processing labs, kind of seen a lot of the industry.
Damn. So tell me this, like whenever it comes to processing hash or processing flower that we buy from a dispensary, which one is more rigorous? And why do you think why do you think it's more common for us to smoke hash in Europe, a little bit more for us to smoke hash in Europe? Do you know due to your like background with cultivation?
Mm, I think when it comes to like which one's harder or more rigorous, it's about the same. Whether you're taking flour and washing it, turning it into hash, or putting it in a hydrocarbon extraction rig, at the end of the day, it's just following a set procedure and process. I think maybe your hash making and bubble hash is a little bit more labor intensive, but
Mm,
nowadays you have machinery to automate that. So, really, depending on how much capital you want to put into it, uh, really determines how rigorous it could be. I think maybe one of the big determining factors could be that capital itself. So hash making, when it comes to like bubble hash, or obviously like finger scissor hash, dry sift screens, those are incredibly cheap. Like, it doesn't cost much to make bubble bags and throw it in a 5 gallon bucket, put some nice water in there with some ice chunks, and just shake that thing for a half hour. Uh,
does your work
it it costs a lot of money to create a hydrocarbon extraction rig that you know is safe and not going to blow you up. There's been plenty of houses blown up and lab fires from hydrocarbon extraction. So we're back. So I think honestly, it it probably could just be over in Europe. They had a culture of hash making. I don't know the best way to word this. It was like more ingrained. There's been, as far as I know, like hash has been a thing over in Europe for a lot longer than it has been in America. Obviously, it comes from, like we mentioned earlier, Afghan or the Hindu Kush mountains, and transporting hash is much easier than transporting flour. And when we look at like complexity of, call it operations, cost to set up operations, or just technology available at the time, um, they were utilizing what they had. And so
Mhm.
hydrocarbon extraction didn't really become a big thing, as far as I know, till like 2010, maybe. Sure, there's probably some chemists doing it before then. And you had like in the 90s and 80s, alcohol tinctures. But I still think that an alcohol tincture is more complex and rigorous, so call it hard to do at the end of the day, than just washing with a bubble bag or doing ice hash, water hash. So that kind of, I don't want to say like culture, but like the transport factor and ease of transport, I think that's probably what led to a big proliferation of European hash as
Mhm.
opposed to American. But I don't
Yeah,
know. That's an interesting question.
probably like as you say, kind of the ecosystem of hash making is a little bit more accustomed to their culture, customs, etc. Um,
Y- Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know. So I'm curious, when it comes to like cannabis and nutrition, have you found, as someone that does have a master's degree in nutrition and kind of like performance optimization. How do you use cannabis to really aid in that, or maybe biohack your way to better performance?
Yeah, for sure. I know what the research says about CBD and muscle relaxant. I think it's definitely beneficial in my life. I've never gotten like super consistent about using like creams or muscle rubs for tissue penetration, but I've definitely kind of used cannabis recreationally just to like kind of calm my nervous system really because I think I'm quite probably like like kind of high energy. So I've used cannabis to like even like active cannabis, but I've used it to like kind of like almost calm my system down. Um, and I think yeah, I like how it comes from a plant, and I like the traditions and the customs that the way it's cultivated. Um, I don't know. I guess I couldn't say that it's for everybody, but I think it's like if you have anxiety or if you have maybe muscle cramps or other medical conditions that cannabinoids can actually like target, I think absolutely. Um, but yeah, I guess I don't know if that answers your question, but I think to wrap it into nutrition, I think like it goes hand in hand for me, at least in my lifestyle.
Okay. That was one thing that I've always found like interesting was the formulations med chem aspect of cannabis. So what I mean by that is like taking a capsule, and you can buy them off of Amazon, just unfilled capsules. And I used to take like 100 milligrams CBD, 50 milligrams CBN, and maybe 25 milligrams of Delta 9 THC. And I would combine it in these capsules, and I would take it after I worked out for like a post workout recovery supplement. And
Hmm.
my thoughts behind that was like the CBD would act as anti inflammation as well as the CBN, or sometimes I'd put CBG in there as well. And then the Delta 9 would offset any of the post workout like soreness or tightness. And it's something that we're starting to kind of see over here, but still hasn't really kind of taken off. Um, like we're starting to see capsules. One thing that just recently popped on the market that I thought was interesting is like those nicotine Zyn pouches. That they've got a THC version of that now and a CBD version of those. Um, but I'm really excited to kind of see the market evolve and start adopting more of these formulations based products, because that was
Hmm.
one of the things that we wanted to do with that the company I mentioned we were trying to raise capital for, is we wanted to come out with uh I don't want to say like a protein powder, but a post workout powder. And we were going to take like a hemp protein base, mix it with some CBD, THCA for the anti inflammation, and then just a small dose of regular THC for the post workout soreness. And having it kind of in that protein powder uh, form factor, the consumers already kind of, yeah. Well, the consumers already used to kind of shaking those and then slamming them right away because they don't dissolve perfectly. And
Hmm.
cannabis is not water soluble at all. It's a pain in the ass to make it mix with water, which is why I think drinks were kind of the last thing to evolve and kind of come out of the market. We're just now seeing drinks hit the market. But I'm really excited for people to really explore the supplement side of cannabis as opposed to just the recreational or the consumption based side.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that would hit the market for like athletes competing in the Olympics because I know cannabis is a banned substance. So I wonder how like the policy on that will evolve as well. I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah. I guess that's something that I didn't really consider, because in the US, I know like a handful of sporting bodies allow THC. The NBA comes to mind. I think the NFL relaxed their policy a little bit. If not, I know that the NFL allows for CBD. So you're
Mm.
starting to see some sports bodies allow cannabis use. And I think even uh, the UFC for mixed martial arts allows cannabis use now. So, but I didn't consider that on the Olympic side. That's interesting. If you were working with an athlete that maybe was allowed to use cannabis, how would
Mhm.
you kind of recommend they best utilize it for aiding in performance or recovery?
That's a good question. I guess whenever you say like THC helps with muscle recovery, I didn't actually know that. I didn't know like the biochemical process that THC does besides kind of the psychoactive component of it. But I think I would definitely use it for like in the massage therapy set, like a massage therapy or a stretch session with an athlete, like probably post training. I don't think I would do it pre training because it's I think a little bit more kind of maybe relaxing. Um, so I think I would use it in the post session, like during a stretch or a massage, like kind of the soft tissue work. Um,
Oh, that's interesting. Because I've tried a couple THC, CBD salves or lotions, and I actually
mhm,
found they helped pretty good. Like they were more effective than I thought they would be. Now, they weren't transdermal creams, so it wasn't like it was entering the bloodstream, wasn't getting any psychoactive effects from it, but it was mainly like topical pain relief and numbing. And I would
mhm,
use it on my lower back. So, I would also find too that it kind of relaxed the muscles around there. So the hip flexors and hips, I would rub it into there and then would just get a lot of lower back topical relief. So I think that's really interesting that you mentioned using that post workout. I
mhm.
totally agree. That would be a phenomenal use case.
Yeah, because if we have, it depends on the sport. It's sport specific, and then obviously gender specific. But if we have a power sport where we're looking for that neural response and that muscular neural connection, then I think maybe CBD, THC might not be the best, most performance enhancing substance. I don't know yet. I haven't. I guess I wouldn't have that much experience with it as far as like for power sport athletes. But I think in the post session, I would definitely find it to be beneficial for kind of just relaxing the muscle, relaxing that area, usually the low back or the hamstrings.
Okay.
Um,
So if someone was going to like formulate their own type of cream or
mhm.
lotion for post workout use, is there anything else you would put in there?
Man, that's a great question. I'm so into like Chinese traditional medicines and like herbs and yeah, herbs for use case situations. I would need probably a solid day to figure out what formula would look like.
Okay.
But trying to think of one of the products that I have now in my cupboard, and it was from the UK, but I got it from this kind of homegrown what is it called, aromatherapy or an apothecary, and I really
Okay.
like it. I don't know exactly what's in there. I want to say like a little bit of ginseng is in there, maybe like a little bit of ginger. Um, but I will definitely come back to you on what like I could see like a nice formula being for that one.
Because that seems like if that product doesn't exist, it seems like a no-brainer. There's so many people that could benefit from something like that, and I even know, like, I'm a family friend with a guy that plays in the NFL, and, like, going to him and be like, "Hey, take this to your trainer and see, what his thoughts are on it, and then try to sell it to the NFL as, like, a post-workout cream." It just seems like a one of those low-hanging fruit products that would be easy to formulate and put out there that you kinda question, like, "Why doesn't this exist right now?" Because I don't really know of anyone doing something like that.
I know there's a company that does focuses on the CBD side of things, and they're called Pure Sport, and I'm sure there's some American companies. I think Pure Sport is in the UK, but they have a rub for a muscular rub that has CBD in it,
Okay,
but like a whole plant, full spectrum product. I was listening to a pod a few weeks ago, and one of the pro teams has like a team chiropractor, and the chiropractor was recommending some of those players, some of his patients, to take some like CBD supplements to help with like relaxation and the muscular recovery side of things. So I think there's like niche people out there kind of trying to push the products, but I'm not sure of a solid product. It would be definitely
okay.
interesting.
Because that's something like you had mentioned when we first connected on LinkedIn that you wanted to find ways to collaborate, and I'm thinking, like, I like to always connect people and connect dots in my head, so where I instantly go is like, I know here's this guy that wants to connect with a master's in nutrition. And then I got this buddy that plays in the NFL. There's a connection there. And I've got this connection to the university that's got a kinesiology department. I wonder what kind of collabs or white paper studies could come out of that. And my head just instantly goes to like, how can we
Mhm.
connect this to develop a brand or a product or whatnot? And so that was just something that I found interesting. Yeah, it's just, it seems like a no-brainer product to me, and off the top of my head, there's, like, 1 or 2 brands that I think of that are selling on the recreational market just to consumers like myself, but they're not really going the sports or recovery aspect. They're just saying,
Mhm.
"Here's a THC, CBD balm or, lotion. Use it for pain."
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I guess we would have to, like, make sure that Olympic level athletes would be able, like, if it is it a banned substance, and then obviously they would have to regulate it with, like, younger athletes, but I think it would definitely be an interesting avenue. Um, and I guess it's interesting that you say, like, we haven't necessarily powdered cannabis yet to, like, mix it with a protein, like, amino acids. I think that would be really useful, but if it's a little bit more, like, clumpy and hard to dissolve in water, that always makes it a little bit harder, because I think in general, cream cream style products are a little bit harder to sell than, like, powders or drinks,
Certainly.
I
Well,
think. Yeah.
there's ways to do it. So, we've got, like, nano encapsulation, which is basically just breaking the THC molecule down to a really small size, and then through that, it's able to disperse into the liquid. There's conjugation, so like coupling it with a sugar or an amino acid, but that almost is kind of altering the molecule itself.
Mhm,
There's encapsulation in like maltodextrin or cyclodextrin, which are just big sugar molecules. And you can kind of think of it as like the THC molecule being surrounded by a ring of, uh, well, water soluble molecules. And through that, it kind of hides itself in the water.
mhm,
Um, so there's a couple ways that people are doing it, but as far as I kind of am aware, it's hard to scale. Uh, and I don't know how good the consistency is because obviously that's an issue that we're seeing on the drink side is just batch to batch variation occurring. Um,
mhm.
that partially could be like absorption into the can liner or settling effects, but um, yeah, there's ways to do it. I don't think it's probably been optimized yet. It is still kind of a newer thing that we're seeing.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of any other ways that you could do it, but that was the nice thing that appealed to me, at least about the protein powder, is the consumers were already kind of, I don't want to say habituated, but they're kind of used to clumps in the powder or not perfectly dissolving and kind of tasting like shit. So they just slam it all down. It's not something they're trying to enjoy. Obviously, cannabis has a bitter taste. And especially
mm.
when you talk about breaking down that molecule size, when it gets really, really small, now it can have better surface area coverage on your tongue and taste receptors. So it amplifies the bitter taste. Like your drinks are usually much more cannabis tasting than your edibles, is at least what
Mm.
I've found.
Yeah, I think so too, like, my wife and I have had a few, like, the beverages and whenever we went to go to Austin, and they're, like, kind of, like, bitter and definitely it feels like it's more dispersed on your tongue, and it's kinda like, "Mm, I don't like this as much," but kind of an adjustment, your taste will adjust.
It's
Um,
definitely I think it's polarizing. There's people that I know that absolutely hate the taste of it, and I found myself, it's almost like an acquired taste. I kinda liken it to, people that really enjoy IPAs or super hoppy beer. Personally,
mhm,
I can't stand the taste of hops, and I don't drink beer because of that. Like, even the lightest beer, I don't like it. Um, but I love the taste of cannabis. So, for
mm.
me, I think it's like partially acquired taste where just through eating more and more of it over time, I've gained or started to like it more. And then partially it's just that you'll have a small subset of the market that for whatever reason really enjoys it. Just like I think people that like IPAs are crazy. People think that I'm crazy for liking super cannabis tasting beverages.
I think I'm right in the middle of the spectrum. I haven't adapted the taste of, like, loving hops or IPAs. I have adjusted and I like a Guinness nowadays, like probably once or twice a month. But I also used to not really like cannabis, like the taste of the smoke in my mouth. But now I've kind of grown of more of like a whenever I actually smell the flower, I try and smell what's different from like I guess the terpene profile from the other flowers. And so it's been fun to like kind of develop that sense. I think it's acquired and it's an adjustment for sure.
Oh, certainly, and I think like, my palate's evolved over time too, where I used to love smoking really gassy strains in the beginning. Now it's kind of evolved to more citrusy or lemony type fruity strains, um, and that's what I find really interesting about cannabis is, like, the diversity of not just products that we can make out of it, but from the flower itself, just how crazy different it can be depending on the strain and the genetics. Is there like
Yeah.
a what's your favorite way to consume or your favorite type of product?
I'd like just a good old flower, and I think all-time favorite way to consume is like a bong, like a water bong,
Okay. Is there a
probably
favorite
like a
s Yeah, is there a favorite strain you got?
strain. I think like off the top of my head, I really like Handband, Green
Okay.
Crack. I'm gonna say like top 3, and then, I had Birthday Cake recently, and I really liked it, but as far as, like, the terpene profiles and the flavonoid profiles, I don't know those ones super specific, but I think, yeah, probably a good old bong and then a nice bowl full of, yeah, birthday cake, or I think it was actually what it was called. It was so
Okay.
nice.
Man, I haven't heard of that strain in a while. I wonder if it's like you're starting to now see America leading the way and then it's slowly kind of making its way to Europe where that wasn't really the case in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's really interesting. And maybe that's what regulation or ease of regulation provides. Because, like, when you mentioned kind of still learning what terpene profiles you like, my mind instantly went to, well, that's the really nice thing about having lab testing. I know a lot of people complain like it's a burden to test your product and stuff, but as a consumer, being able to see the terpenes that are in my flower and the different percents, that's really valuable information. And it allows me to kind of have informed purchasing decisions as I kind of consume more and more. You can kind of fine tune that in.
Mhm. Exactly, and that's where I think, like, um, for me, like, whenever recreational cannabis legalized in Oregon, like, for dispensary and for it to be written on the board and for somebody to like talk me through how this process go was really helpful for me. Really like encouraging for me to understand the knowledge behind cannabis and how to act better. So yeah. Can you tell me like what is your favorite like strain, or do you have a
Mhm.
profile you kind of navigate towards or you gravitate towards most?
As far as like favorite strain, I don't know because I almost take the viewpoint that strains aren't really a thing. It's kind of like marketing.
Hmm.
Because even if, let's say, like you and I, we both have a strain of sour diesel, which is one of my all time, if we were to say favorite strains, that's up there. Um, the grow conditions and grow style that I use could be completely different from what you utilize. And those environmental differences are going to cause actually a lot of difference on the end product. So, beyond just environmental factors causing differences in the end product, you also have stuff like genetic drift or epigenetic drift. So, if I have a mother plant and I'm taking clone cuttings from it to restock and kind of keep that strain going, over time, those genetics are going to slightly change. And just like human genetics, mutations will occur. Uh,
Hmm.
and those mutations stack up. So, what I'm trying to get to is no two growers will ever produce the same true product. Like, even if I were to try to grow that same sour diesel now and then 4 or 5 months in the future, because of those subtle differences in environmental factors and genetic drift, the test results on those two products, albeit small, there will be a difference in it. So and then there's always the who knows if your genetics are actually the true genetics because so many breeders have passed off false names or people just slap names on it. I even know in Michigan, like I was interviewing for a job, and I'm not going to out the company, but they were like, yeah, sometimes we changed the name up because this strain is not hot right now and the market doesn't want it. So we'll put it to the latest hype strain that's selling. And
Mm,
so that was like an instant red flag in my mind, like, don't work for that company. But so there's a lot of like what ifs. Um, and that's why I kind of lean towards like flavor profile or terpene profile. I've been
mhm,
really liking the citrusy terps. So like
mhm,
traditionally, lemon sour diesel or tangy would produce those. Uh, some of your more like candy flavors, the runts, trop cherry, stuff like that. I also find it's kind of like an exotic. Like it's interesting when most people think of cannabis, they just think of like either really gassy stuff or skunky flavors. Seeing these kind of fruit flavors carry over into the plant, I don't know. I find it really intriguing.
mhm. 100%. And I think that kind of reminds me, like you asked me the question, how do I use cannabis and nutrition at the same time? Like even olives, grapes, they're going to have a different profile, a different taste profile based on the region where they're grown. In cannabis, so it's like for me, it's really cool to see how, yeah, I was traditionally in these areas, but like we have people in Hawaii, when you're in Ohio right now, yes,
Michigan.
Michigan, shit, sorry, fuck you,
You're
Ohio.
good. Yep.
Oh,
Hey, amen to that, man. As a diehard U of M fan, it was weird living in Columbus for a couple months.
okay. I don't know the Northeast that well, but I certainly don't live in Texas, and don't, I couldn't
Oh,
find myself
it's
being there ever again.
so I'm a
But
big football guy, American football, and U of M versus Ohio State is like a huge rivalry. Like some people say it's one of the biggest in sports. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but yeah, U of M and Ohio State hate each other, and Ohio State's based out of Columbus. So I basically went in rivalry territory for a couple months.
um, have you heard that 28 Olympics is gonna introduce like flag football as a
That's
sport,
interesting.
men and women? How cool is that?
That is cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool. I don't know how I feel about flag football. Maybe that's just because being born and raised in the tackle football era, and there's something to all those concussions that I think build some character. I don't know if it's for the best, but nah, I'm just joking. Flag football, there's probably the best way to do it to stay safe. I know so many people that got really fucked up from, and even like we mentioned, I was using the CBD and THC salve lotion stuff for my back. That's
Mhm.
because I broke my L5 vertebrae my sophomore year of high school. Playing football, took a helmet to the back and kind of like the little horn that comes off the side of your vertebrae that chipped. Never healed up right because, of course, I played 2 games to finish the season off with it still fucked up. And yeah, like to this day, I've got lingering issues from football. So maybe flag football is for the best. But that's really cool that the Olympics are adopting that. I wonder what country is going to, I mean, obviously the US is going to win that. But so I'm like wondering who's the second and third place going to be? Like, what are the top 3 countries for American football?
Yeah,
And are they calling it American football? Because I think like that would. What are they calling it?
that's a good question. I've just recently found an organization. They're called International Flag Football,
Okay.
or maybe it's just International Flag. It used to be called American Flag Football, but they've now just rebranded. But I'm not sure what they're calling the event in the Olympics. I'm assuming
Hmm.
like flag football, or
Flag
maybe I'm,
football might work because there's enough differentiation from quote unquote soccer.
yeah. And I think I take the stance that like flag football is ultimately better because I played football kind of like you throughout high school, and then I played 2 years in college. But
No
I would
shit.
estimate that I had probably at least 50 minor concussions, at least for playing
Yeah.
American 10 years. Um,
What
and then
college did you play for?
so I walked on at Oregon my fourth
Oh
year,
shit. What was
and
that like?
dude, it was amazing. It was really cool. It was really great. It was like, okay, you know Rudy, right? I was basically Rudy for the University of Oregon in 2017. I was still a member of the track team and I was pretty good on the track team, but like, yeah, I walked on to the Ducks and then I ended up transferring to another school in Texas and I played football there as well. But I actually got injured both years playing football. My first year
Damn.
at Oregon, I broke my ankle, and then at Angelo State, I tore a tendon in my finger, and I can't actually bend here anymore.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
so just the injury itself, and I know like the neural demand and the concussions that it takes on the body is pretty impactful. So I think them introducing flag football is kind of a cool thing.
Certainly. What position did you play?
I was a wide receiver,
Nice.
and yeah, I played a little bit of like special teams, but mainly just like a wide out wide receiver because I'm fast and quick, very agile. But what position did you play?
Outside linebacker. I know it doesn't look like it nowadays, but I used to be a lot bigger than I was. I have since developed gastroparesis, so I had a lot of weight loss from that, and then obviously mismanagement of the type 1 diabetes doesn't help. So some medical complications, but that's really cool. I didn't know that you played college football. Um,
It
you had
was brutal.
mentioned, yeah, I bet. I My buddy that plays in the NFL now, he plays for the Dolphins, but seeing like what he did on Ferris State, I was like, respect, man. He put in a lot of effort to get there. You had mentioned though, like earlier, the Olympics, and I had just remembered I got another buddy, Jake Vetter. I don't know if you're familiar with him in border cross. It's kind of like a snowboarding type of sport, but he's actually sponsored by Wojo Cannabis, and I don't know if he consumes or not, but that just clicked in my brain where I was like, oh, there's cannabis companies at least putting their logos on this guy's his like face mask and snowboard. Um,
I guess
kind
with
of,
my like in the running community, that would be pretty dope. But it definitely, I think, cannabis fits a snowboarder, and I
do
think
you
it's
work?
sorry.
I was just curious if you worked with any like Olympic athletes.
I don't at the moment. I worked with
Okay,
one athlete from the game, so the 2021 Olympics.
that's
Um,
cool.
it was amazing because we started working together in January, and then he made it to the finals in June. And we basically just like fine tune his nutrition strategy.
Nice.
We kind of like optimized his timings and things like that. So it was really cool. But I think definitely snowboarding fits
Oh
cannabis and
yeah.
like a lot well. But I think it will kind of trend with like running and running clubs have like evolved and kind of grown as well. So yeah, potentially that's pretty cool.
Well, I could see that, and I know that like a lot of runners enjoy cannabis because, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't cannabis also kind of mimic a lot of those natural endorphins or the natural high that running kind of gives you?
Yeah, I guess that was a question that I had for you as well. Like, how does cannabis impact the endocannabinoid system, similar to like a repetitive movement? Because I know like after a certain amount of time of running, your body is doing this repetitive movement, and that actually helps. Um, it helps like excrete your endogenous endocannabinoid system. So I was kind of interested in like the similarities between those two.
Honestly, I don't know, and that'd be interesting to look up. I'm sure there's peer-reviewed research out there, but
Oh,
I
for
know
sure.
that like as you had mentioned, we have these natural cannabinoids called endocannabinoids that our bodies produce, and those do get released as part of like the reward system. So when you do run, you are getting like 2-AG and anandamide is two of the ones that come to mind. But when you consume cannabis, you're exogenally getting it, those cannabinoids. They're still filling the same receptors. So whether
Hmm.
your body produces it or the plant does, they're both going to the CB1 or the CB2 receptors. And those are just placed in different parts of the body. The CB1 predominantly up in the brain, the CB2 throughout the body. And the CB1 receptor, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I read up on the actual receptor types, but the CB1 receptor is what is responsible for the actual psychoactive high. And then the CB2 receptors found like throughout the body, and it plays a big role in like regulation um, and just maintaining homeostasis. I think there's not enough research done on the endocannabinoid system, given how big of a regulatory system it is. I mean, I don't know if there's like enough research to say like it's as important as the nervous system or stuff like that, but it does play a role in so many body functions that it seems like we should be trying to do more research into it. Um, but
Yeah, I
yeah, to
don't know,
kind of
but that would be amazing to be like to be a part of it, to definitely kind of be a part of that research. I don't know what it would look like, but that would be awesome.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that research could already be out there. We've been kind of exploring the endocannabinoid system in various forms and functions since the early Mecholam studies in the 1960s. So it very well could exist, and I just aren't maybe not aware of it. But um, yeah, like when you consume cannabis and like take a dab here, hit the Puffco real quick, um, you're feeling the same receptors that your natural endocannabinoids would. And that's why, kind of like, if you're a chronic or a habitual cannabis user and you randomly take a break, the first day or two, you might feel a little shitty because your body, if it's going to be getting these cannabinoids from an external source, it's not going to put precious energy towards making those endogenous cannabinoids. So
Hmm.
it'll shut down production of anandamide and 2-AG because you're kind of doing it for it. And that kind of 1 or 2 days that it takes to re-kickstart production of those endocannabinoids, you do feel a little off.
Hmm. Yeah, those are usually the hardest days of taking a break, like a substance break.
Yeah, the first couple of days, but I think a lot of that too could be psychological, and that's where it's interesting as someone that kind of does focus on the psychology mixed with the actual biochemical and neurological functions that are occurring. Having that kind of intersection, I think, is really beneficial.
Hmm. Yeah, that's cool. Do you do any work now with? Do you collaborate now with the university that you studied at? To me, like going back for this would be so super cool.
Yeah, so I'm wrapping up research right now. Actually, after this, I'm going to be putting together some figures for our paper that we're hoping to submit here in the next week or so. That was looking into basically polymer plastic leaching in vape carts.
Hmm.
Um, I hope to be able to do follow up research with them, but I don't know if that's going to be feasible. I'm hoping to actually move out of Sault Ste. Marie here soon. We just get way too much snow for my body. Like earlier, I think yesterday, there was like 6 inches of snow. Tomorrow, we're getting like a foot. Uh, be about 15 feet of snowfall every year. And I'm just not built for that. I need to bounce down to like Florida.
Hmm.
So the distance, I don't know. I would love to find a way to collaborate with them remotely or do more cannabis research because it is something that I found very rewarding. Um, and I mean, you're adding to the body of cannabis history and adding to the general collective knowledge. So I think there's a lot of good that comes out of it. Um, I think my research was more kind of like base level, laying the groundwork. It was kind of like saying, hey, we present this finding of like, this is a novel finding. Now, because of it, we can go in so many different directions. So it might have caused like more questions than it did answers. But I think that's what research does is it kind
Hmm.
of you build off the shoulders of giants. And so from this, I hope a ton of follow up research can occur. And
Hmm.
thankfully, there's like other students like myself who will need to be performing a capstone senior research project. So there's bodies to kind of fill that need. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed the whole. It was grueling and it was a hard process, but it was a fun journey. We'll put it that way.
Hmm. Similar to life, the fun journey, its ups and downs.
Certainly. Did you have to do any research as a part of your master's degree? Because I know some kind of have you do like a white paper or thesis
Did a,
paper.
I did a capstone as well,
Okay.
and this finished in 2020. But my research was basically on it was on using beetroot substance for power athletes, which
Okay.
there's a lot on endurance athletes and less on power athletes. It was kind of random. I didn't have like a lot of guidance in it, but um, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I really like supplements and seeing how they impact performance. I think cannabis, I'm still a little bit scared of just because of its regulation with the Olympic Committee and it being a banned substance. I don't know how that would look like in a protocol for an athlete. But as far as like vitamin C or other supplements, like that one's a little bit easier to work around because they're all legal. We
Okay.
just make sure that they're not, they're, I guess, like third party tested and just make sure that they're approved by the Olympic Committee. Um, yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you got maybe like some of your like your condition and what kind of started you with cannabis?
Yeah. So basically through mismanagement of type 1 diabetes, it was my own fault. Uh, Bad blood sugar control will cause nerve damage. I mean, that's no surprise to a lot of people. Uh, but I guess as a type 1 diabetic, I always associated that with just neuropathy pain in your hands and feet. I didn't realize that it could also attack your vagus nerve, which controls stomach empty. So
Mm,
the average person, it takes about 1 to 2 hours for food and drinks to kind of make their way out of the stomach, if I'm not mistaken on that. And I did a basically you eat radioactive eggs and they watch it kind of go through your whole system. And it showed that I had 8 hour solid state emptying and 6 hour liquid state emptying, basically 3 to 4 times as long as it should be. And as a result of that, it causes a ton of nausea and vomiting, and it'll just randomly occur. Like it could be totally fine 1 minute and then puking my brains out the other. And so, because of that, it caused a lot of weight loss. I'm 6 foot tall right now. I'm about 145 pounds, but at my lowest, I got down to 109 pounds. I
mm.
was actually just backing up photos and transferring the other day, and I saw photos of like how skin and bone it was, and it was crazy how bad it got. But yeah, essentially, my stomach doesn't want to empty, and it just holds food up there. Sometimes, like I would wake up around 9 or 10 in the morning, throwing up as soon as I got up, and it would be totally undigested food from dinner the night
Mhm.
before, like over
Fuck.
12, 14 hours. So, like, it could get really bad at sometimes, and then, like, I could go a month without any issues at all. So it's
Mhm.
like it's a really weird disease. It's called gastroparesis. Not a lot of people, as far as I know, have it. I actually don't know another person in real life that has this disease. I've only met them through like Reddit and little online support groups. So,
Find another one from this video, guaranteed. Thank you.
but yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's
So it's
definitely not fun.
basically delayed gastric emptying,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Heavily delayed.
so cannabis will have some sort of impact to help, like, I guess, relax that to help it empty faster or normally.
Actually makes it worse. So that's one thing that like I kind of had to dabble with, and thankfully it doesn't delay it severely. It's not like opiates, for example, will completely shut down your GI system, and like
Mhm.
that's a big no go for me because that'll obviously complete shutdown of the GI system is not what I need. So cannabis, I think it does help relieve nausea, and there's a lot of research into that. It was something where doctors did for a while question if cannabis was causing the nausea and vomiting because there is a condition called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome or CHS, and that's a really kind of newer disease that we don't really fully understand at all. But it was through doing that kind of radioactive gastric emptying study that we were able to disprove that because we were able to show an actual mechanical dysfunction in the GI tract as opposed to uh, cannabis just causing nausea and vomiting through what we think is dysregulation of the endocannabinoid system or potentially through the TPRV
Mm,
receptors in the gut. Um, so I
okay.
really just use cannabis for nowadays chronic pain relief and then nausea, vomiting relief, obviously as a mood enhancer. And I'm not gonna lie, I use it recreationally as well. I mean, I enjoyed having that little tingle to life. So, yeah, that's why I consume it, but it's not, I would say, probably the best for my condition. Um,
Mhm. I
I've
think,
tried pretty much every medication out there though, and without success. Uh, I actually have what's called a gastric pacemaker, basically like a pacemaker for your heart. It shocks the nerve. And that actually helped out a good amount, but it wasn't a perfect fix.
do you know of,
Sorry to
I
cut you
guess,
off there though.
the nutritionist in me is like, okay, what foods are triggering kind of the vomiting and the diarrhea? Could you put could you put a finger on what foods might have caused that?
No, and I worked with a couple nutritionalists over at the University of Michigan to try and dial it in. It didn't really seem that diet played a big role in it. Obviously, quicker digesting foods and more of a liquid based diet helps. I found that eating smaller portions and kind of grazing throughout the day is what I kind of have to do. Um, but yeah, it's weird too because like it's very sporadic. I kind of say that it comes up in like little episodes. Like I'll go 1 or 2 months without any issues, and then I'll be in the hospital for 10 days because I can't control the nausea, vomiting, and need IV fluids and medication to kind of help out. So it's very just weird. It comes and goes. It kind of flares up and disappears sometimes. Like right now,
Mhm,
I'm in one of those phases where I haven't had, it's been probably like 3, 4 weeks since the last time I had an issue. So
mhm,
knock on wood that we'll get another 3, 4 weeks. But yeah,
mhm.
it's an interesting disease. It's something that I've learned to kind of have to work with. Definitely makes holding a job down difficult, but you just kind of roll with the punches, and that's life. Um,
Do you see yourself like working online or remotely, or are you a like, person guy?
oh, I definitely don't mind online remote work. I think I want to, and I don't know where I want to end up in the industry. Obviously, if I could pick, I would say it as like a research role, in that definitely takes a lot of in person time and necessity there. But those roles don't really exist yet. And so I kind of look to the processing manufacturing side, which is in the extraction labs, or working with grows in the cultivation side of things. And I think you can kind of do that hybrid, but you really have to be there in person for the most part.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it just takes communication, like talking with the people. And in cannabis, you have to be super flexible and willing to adapt, or you're not going to make it in this industry. So if that means putting a project on hold for a week because something's going on or having a flare up, then unfortunately that's the case. But um, it's not easy. I will say that, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah. How could you see yourself like, I guess, destigmatizing cannabis, but also help improving like the efficiency of the industry?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think it just first step is you need to at least improve access. So by taking this taking the notion that cannabis is this horrible drug or substance, like in the US it's still schedule 1, meaning that there's no medicinal use and high risk for abuse. But we know that's not the case because the federal government has a patent on cannabis for its medicinal uses. And we know that it's not like physically addictive. Sure, you can be psychologically addicted to anything, but for the past 100 years, we've created this false notion around the plant. And through legalization, you allow people access to cannabis in a non stigmatized way. Like you had mentioned, going into a shop where it's safe and easy, and it's no different than buying alcohol. And then also, people are more willing to talk about it. I think just having conversations like this, the more you put cannabis out in the mainstream, the more people just become used to it. I think right now, most people are already pretty accustomed to cannabis. Like the approval rating for cannabis in the US is well into the 80s and 90%. there's not many people that I know nowadays that are very like anti-cannabis. And even those people, I mean, they're definitely entitled to their opinion, but like there's people that are anti-tobacco or anti-big pharma, anti uh, immunizations or vaccinations. Like you'll have proponents and opponents to everything, and that's natural. But as it exists currently, you've got this kind of ecosystem that's built around false notions and anti-cannabis propaganda. Um, so yeah, through legalization, that's the first step, and I think that that's going to have to come with the U.S. legalizing and then kind of setting that standard. Because unfortunately, it seems that many countries kind of follow the suit of Americans, or they'll follow in the footsteps. So hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see that tide kind of turn where more people just have access to it. They can give it a shot, realize it's not what they've been told to. They've been sold kind of, I don't want to say like this bucket of lies, but that was the first time. That was one of the first things like I thought of when I look back to consuming cannabis my first time. And I remember hitting the joint and thinking like, oh, all these people were wrong to me. Like I felt lied to about this plan. I'm like, I don't see anything wrong with this. Where's all these downsides that people are talking about? I didn't go crazy or have a psychotic moment. I didn't like, I, I don't know. It's like the DARE program and all the anti-cannabis propaganda that we've received the past 100 years just kind of collapsed instantly in that moment. And I was like, oh, just people need to give this a shot and try it. And if it's not for them, it's not for them. That's fine. Um, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I'm curious, what do you kind of think?
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that because I think we graduated high school the same year. I think you
I
mentioned it.
was 2014.
Okay, I was 13, so really close. I was so, I guess, like sheltered into drugs that I didn't really. I mean, I had weed. I tried smoking like my junior and senior year, like during the summertime with some random friends that I used to go to high school with that were in college at the time, and they were like in Oklahoma State. So they were at like somewhere that weed was a little bit more common, and I tried it with them, and it was completely. Uh, I think I would smoke weed and I wouldn't speak for like 4 hours. So it was kind of me until I moved to Oregon and got more accustomed to it with people who were really familiar with cannabis. And I think the growing culture in Oregon is pretty rich, especially in Eugene, where I went to school. Um, I guess I kind of forgot the question. What was it?
You're good, dude. I do that all the time. I think I did as well. That's funny though that you mentioned that you wouldn't talk for 4 hours because to- tolerance plays a big role in it. And I think
Mhm.
one of the things people that have a bad first experience, a lot of that just comes from not consuming it correctly and just way overdoing it. Like I think back to it was maybe the third time I ever consumed cannabis, and my buddy gives me a big fat dab on a red hot titanium torch, and I pass out for the next like 18 hours. And it was a horrible experience for the 10 minutes that I was awake after that dab. But that is not what you do to a third time ever consuming person. And of course,
Yeah.
nowadays we know that it's not how you consume a dab. But yeah, I look back to I got some family members that are very anti-cannabis because now I'm pretty open in my family about my cannabis use, and obviously they know about it from my work and the degree. But there's some people that I'm like, and I'm not going to out them, but I'm like, oh, if you just didn't
You know you're out there. You know you're
like,
out there.
you didn't have to eat 10 brownies, like in those days, obviously the dosage they just threw whatever, and so you had no idea. I'm like, you probably ate 500-600 milligrams. Like, no shit, you had a bad experience, and you're so
Mm,
afraid to touch this. Like, let
mhm.
me walk you through how to do this responsibly in the right way, and we can give it another shot. But, um, yeah,
I
it's
remember one of the first times that my mom came to visit me in Oregon. I had like this 3 foot water bottle, and there was like trees on it. There was a waterfall. It was like very Oregon-esque, and
mhm.
how I did it, and then I tried to like I basically walked her through it, and I did just like a little bitty cherry, like a starter pack for a bong rip, and it was more of like a gentle approach. But I do remember in my first few years of trying it, I had some Oregon teammates who were from Oregon, and they gave me a dab rig, and it was just, yeah, I don't think I spoke for 3 or 4 hours, and then I was just completely like, I felt zooted, 100% zooted.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with the extracts. Nowadays, that's my favorite way to consume because I think it's getting all the compounds that you want without any of the unwanted stuff. So, like the chlorophyll and the plant matter, the fats and waxes that come with plant matter. Not all that carries over into the extract. So that's why personally, like dabs nowadays, that's my go-to. And it's weird in the Michigan market, extracts are actually cheaper on a per gram basis than flour, which is weird because it takes like, I don't know, 10, 15 grams of, you know, okay quality flour to make a gram of extract, depending on
Wow.
your method of extraction and your efficiency, of course. But like the average hydrocarbon extraction yields about 10 to 15%. And obviously your potency of your input material is going to play a role in that. But I just find it really interesting that your extract is now selling oftentimes much cheaper than just flour.
Mhm. Do you think that has to do with being full spectrum versus not full spectrum?
No, I think it's just you probably had a ton of grows that had shit flour and flooded the extractors with biomass. And then
Mm,
the extractors had to then compete with each other, and you had that kind of drive price down. And then it's just basic supply and demand. So in Michigan, you probably have a ton of outdoor grows, and they just put all of that biomass straight to extracts because they know the market generally doesn't like that. I mean, there definitely is a big market in Michigan for cheap ounces of weed, like talking 20 to $50 an ounce. But a lot of that I think just gets put to extracts and then it just floods the market.
mhm. Yeah, I think that could be maybe a bad thing. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it is, but it isn't because you can have shit flour, but it still at the end of the day has the same THC as good flour. It might not be as much. It still has the same terpenes. Again, may
Mhm,
not be nearly as much, and it may look like shit, but a good extractor can turn that into a good product. So you can just kind of extract the compounds that you want and then leave all that bad stuff behind. And that's where the extraction labs really come in to provide that extra value, turning crap into gold. And it gets a bad name or bad rep in the industry. But I think at the end of the day, like it's still the same THC that you get from flour, still the same terpenes. Um, so like when people say like, "Oh, I don't want CRC," which is color remediation chromatography, and it gets a really bad rap, I'm like, "Oh, that's still good THC to me. It still does the same stuff."
mhm, mhm. Yeah, maybe it's more user preference at that point. I don't know. I can't
Certainly.
tried a lot of extracts. Is besides a dab, is a dab an
But yeah, yep. So like there's so many different names for it and more and more come out every year it seems, but like dab, crumble, shatter, live resin, live
Mhm,
rosin, all that, even hash I consider as an extract. Anything that takes the plant and you're adding extra steps to then extract the good stuff. So whether that be you're washing it in a bubble bag, throwing it through some ethanol solvent or hydrocarbon solvent like butane, propane, all that is doing is just extracting the good stuff from the plant, and I kind of lump all that in, but, like, it's even funny that we use the word dab, right? Like, I think it came from just, like, a dab will do you. All you need is a little dab of this, but it's, like, such a weird name to put on a product category, and yet it's still, like, probably one of the more prolific names that we use for concentrates or extracts.
mhm. I wonder if I had dab because my wife and I we visited Canada, and I think I used a brand called Sherbinski, and I think they were basically extracts, they were dabs, and it was so nice. It was really nice.
Well, and it's really nice too, because like, what I like over flour is, it's very portable. It's I mean, that's a couple weeks worth of extracts in there for me.
Mhm,
Um, I'm vaporizing it as opposed to combustion, so there's much less smell, and the smell is gonna go away, so you can consume indoors without anyone really noticing you, at least temporarily, and, Yeah, it's just more convenient, I think. I don't have to grind it up, pack it in a bowl or a joint, then find my lighter. It seems to be a lot cleaner. Like I can go a little bit longer without cleaning my glass. I know that's probably not a great thing, but like there's no water in this pipe, so like every couple weeks I'll clean this as opposed to having to change the water out every day or two.
Hmm.
So there's a convenience factor to it as well, and then obviously the cost factor is a big thing. For a while, it wasn't cheaper to consume extracts; it was much more expensive. But like we mentioned, as of lately, it's crazy that like I can buy a gram of extract for cheaper than a gram of flour, and it takes many grams of flour to make 1 gram of extract.
It is crazy you say that because the first time that I bought hash, they were like, it's €6. And I was like, wow, you just charged me like €25 for 1 gram of flour, and you're giving me the equivalent for €7.
That almost goes to show, like, maybe because it is so much easier to conceal hash and transport it, how much that upcharge is for, I mean, on that market, it would be like risk and complexity of the operation involved. But like, yeah, that convenience factor of being small really does pay off.
Hmm. As with your background, like in cultivation, and there being a farm here in Majorca, I've already found a farm that grows. How could you see like me contributing to their farm? I guess because like you have a background in cultivation and in the processing side of things, and I want to learn more about that side of stuff and kind of get more involved in cannabis and the kind of the farm to table side of it. Do you have any like recommendations or kind of insider tips for that?
Oh, there's plenty of ways to get involved depending on like what you're really interested in. I mean, if it's something that like it's as easy as going up to them and just starting a conversation, that would be, I think, the first step. If you're interested in actually like working at the grow, I think that's a completely different recommendation conversation than like just trying to. I guess like that would be my question is like, what are you trying to get out of it?
Mhm. I would like to learn the cultivation side of things. So if I worked the farm for a little bit, that would be cool because I would learn and develop that skill to actually grow some homegrown plants. Um, but I could also see like what we talked about as well, like doing like educational videos or like having a YouTube series out for them that just talks about the benefits of cannabis or how it's used in the real world or how athletes could use it for training.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, that could be like every company loves marketing and exposure. So that could be as easy as going up to them and being like, hey, I'm really interested in the grow. Can we shoot a podcast or a walkthrough? Uh, and I'll ask a bunch of questions while I'm in there, and you'll get some free content out of it, free marketing. And then it's kind of like that quid pro quo. Or it could just be like, hey, are you guys looking to hire? I'm willing to kind of come in and learn the ropes. There's a handful of good books and educational guides out there. I think one of my favorites is the Future 4200 form online. Basically, any question you could have, I feel like I just put it in the search bar and I find my answers pretty quickly. There's a ton of knowledgeable people on Future 4200. So, like, if there's any like grow specific things you're trying to learn, I'd point you in that direction. But I think really just showing up and knocking on the door, making your presence known,
mhm.
is probably the best way to go about that. Um, I miss being in the grows. I had a small home grow for a little bit, and unfortunately had to give that up when I moved, just because the landlords are a little bit more strict up here. But I can't wait to be able to grow again someday soon.
Mhm. I'm sure it's like the same as nutrition. Like I can grow my own tomatoes and sometimes I do, but like the convenience factor of going to the grocery store and just having it consistency is probably a little bit easier. Probably. Wow.
But yeah, like don't get me wrong, there was times where I was like, "Fuck this! I'm so tired of having to maintain this." Or like you come home from after an 8-10 hour shift, and you're like, "I got to put 2 hours in the grow just to keep that going." But at the end of the day, I think it was so rewarding, and like there's a almost like a peace inside of the garden, or a tranquility, I feel like. And I've never experienced it in any other type of like garden or floral setting or even like I love nature and being outside, but like there's a vibe to the cannabis grow that is hard to replicate. So I don't know, like you get really close with the plants and being able to kind of, like you said, growing your own tomatoes or nutrition, there is something to growing your own medicine, or growing your own escape if you use it recreationally. Um,
Hmm.
like enjoying the fruits of your labor, I guess, is a big thing.
Yeah, it's cool. Maybe we could like, I don't know. How often do you go through a new strain whenever you smoke recreationally?
Honestly, I like to take the notion of the nose. So I go in, and thankfully a lot of the retail locations around me, they do what's called deli style. So they'll have a big giant jar, and they'll have maybe 30 different strains, and you can kind of see and smell and look at the bud, and they'll weigh out how much you want in front of you, and then you go about your purchase. So I just kind of smell which ones smell the most appealing to me, and those are the ones I kind of go with. I think we'll usually see a rotation of like 10, 15 new strains a week. And that really differs depending on where you live too. Cause like I only have a couple retail locations around me. You go closer towards one of the bigger cities, you might have 20, 30 within a couple mile driving distance. So with the couple shops around me, even still, like they do a pretty good job of rotating strains in and out, and they'll try to keep 15, 20 different brands in stock, off the top of my head. So you do get a good diverse selection. And I generally find myself trying a different strain every time. And now it might not be a new strain every time, but I always just kind of keep rotating, because I do find that if you smoke the same stuff constantly, your tolerance almost builds much, much quicker. It's almost like you get a tolerance to the strain itself on top of also getting a tolerance to cannabis. So,
I think same rules go for food because if you have, cooked spinach for 14 days in a row, by day 15, you're like, fuck this spinach.
yes. Yep.
And it's supposed to be healthy for you, but like I wonder how much that tolerance plays into like plant medicine and foods as well. Like I guess on our taste buds, we need a little bit more diversity and kind of unknown and things what not to I guess unpredictable, I guess.
Yeah, it gets bland after a while. So I totally agree. It is very much like food in that aspect.
Hmm. I'm the same way. Like I'll go to the club and I'll try something kind of what looks the nicest on the shelf or what smells the nicest. Um, but they don't have like charts to say this is the terpene profile of this plant and where it was cultivated. Like I asked the guy at the desk, I was like, "Hey, bro, do they grow this in Majorca or is it imported over here?" And he was like, "Man, I don't know."
Oh,
So
that's too bad. I'm
yeah,
curious, when you say club, is that like an actual social club where you can consume on site? And what's
mhm.
that really look like?
It's encouraged 100% to consume on site.
That's cool.
Uh, Yeah, so this one's in a small coastal town, so I wouldn't say it's like the most prestigious or pristine, like clean type vibe, but I think it's got some work to do as far as like the cleanliness and I guess how they sell the product. I think that plays a big role into how we educate the customers and the client with it. Um, but yeah, it's basically like a lounge that you come in and you purchase at the counter and then you just chill on the couch and you roll up or you smoke. You can be as social or as kind of solo as you want to. But we have a pool table and I haven't played any pool yet.
That's
We'll
really
see.
cool. We've got
Yeah.
consumption lounges in Michigan. There's like two or three, but no one really utilizes them, and they don't bring in a lot of customers from what I kind of know. Like I've never even been to one, and they've been legal since 2019. Um, we back in the day, I used to go what was called the Genesee County Compassion Club, and basically it was this building out in the middle of nowhere in Flint, kind of a bigger city, and it was a collective of caregivers. So that was basically someone that could grow the plants for a med card holder, and it was almost like a farmer's market for these caregivers. And myself, I was a caregiver for a little bit. So I had 72 plants was what you could grow maximum. And you would basically sell or donate your overages, is what it was called, basically the excess from the grow that the patients didn't consume that month. It was like a cool little farmer's market for them. And they had like booths. You rented out the booth as a caregiver for the 8-hour shift. People could come up, sit at the booth, smoke with you, and then buy your product. And I wish that we could do that in Michigan still. Um, I think it still exists for those med card holders, but the med market in Michigan pretty much disappeared with the emergence of the caregivers because it was so convenient just to stop by your closest retail shop and know that you're getting lab tested product and where it
Hmm.
was grown, branded product.
Yeah, to me, that would be the best way to introduce it to people who are new to it. Just bring it into a market because it seems safe, it seems regulated, and then it seems like personal from farmer to consumer.
Well, and thankfully, we've had enough states kind of create the template for how they think legalization or regulation should be done best. I'm not saying any state is better than the other because they've all fucked it up in one way or the other, if we're being honest. But it gives that template for countries or other states or places, we'll just call it, to be like, okay, look, this one looks like a good way to regulate it. Let's try to adopt that framework or make slight changes to it. And hopefully that's what I kind of say when I'm like, US is what I think is going to lead the way to other countries coming online. They can look at what the different states in the US did right or wrong and then build off of that framework. And hopefully in the next couple of years, that actually comes to fruition and starts to happen. But who knows?
Hmm. I guess
Having
I think as far as like recreationally, Colorado might be the pioneers. Is this right?
I don't know. I've never been to Colorado, so I can't really personally vouch for it. I know that they don't do the most in sales. Uh,
Mhm.
California and Michigan kind of lead the way in sales. And then each of those markets, you have people that gripe and have their issues with it. Personally, I mean, I'm totally biased to this, but I think Michigan did a really good job of it. We did not early because we had a lot of corruption with our very first regulatory board. Um, but I think we've evolved and slowly tried to figure it out. We still have a lot that we need to fix, but that's why I say, like, I don't know if one state has done it right or done it the best, but I'm also a chemist and a grower. I'm not a regulatory like expert or certainly no lawyer. Having lived in so many different places, where do you think has done it the best so far?
I think I'm like you, like I'm a little bit biased towards Oregon just because I think
Okay.
the countries these days are quite progressive and they're welcoming. I have been to California and I've been to where else did we go? Canada. I thought Canada was pretty great as well. They seemed very welcoming. They were very like, okay, this is what you'll consume and this is the farm that it came from and these are the profiles. So for me, like the more information, not overwhelming. It is overwhelming, but it's good for me to kind of learn the details and to understand the plant a little bit more. Um, I would say, yeah, probably Oregon or California, for my opinion, are so far the best. But I think recreationally cannabis was legalized first in Colorado, so I feel like they're the kind of the pioneers. Um,
Yeah, they definitely did.
and I hope to see Texas progress someday, but I don't really know.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I think that would be definitely nice for the United States of America.
Well, it's a big market. They got a large population, and I think,
It's just very aggressive. So like I think they eat the plant.
yep, that too. There's something to be said about that. Like, I go to Ann Arbor a lot, and that's a city. Granted, it's very a liberal city, but there's a different peace and vibe to that city, and it's been basically legal since the '60s in the Ann Arbors. It was always like a $5 fine was the jokes.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Well, it is getting to be almost or a little after an hour and a half. We went a long way on this. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of dive into real quick? If not, wrap this up real quick. 'Cause I don't want to take too much of your time.
Yeah, no, I think I've ran out of questions and my phone's on less than 10%.
You're good, man.
Yeah, it was definitely cool to connect and to kind of talk about your background with cannabis.
Likewise. And dude, I'm always down to have more of these. So whenever you want to jump on, just feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Where's the best place that people can connect with you if they want to reach out and message you?
Yeah, I'll let's attach maybe my LinkedIn
Oh, of course.
link and that's probably the place. I'm also active on Instagram, but I think LinkedIn is where I'm at mostly. Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. So if you guys made it to this far in the episode and you are looking to connect with Ben, down in the comments, I will have his LinkedIn profile. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to meet and to talk. It was definitely good to dive into that, and can't wait to have you back on eventually in the future, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Alex. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. So if you guys like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. You know what to do. With that, have a good day, everyone.